Thank you. Are we okay if I don't use the microphone? I have a loud voice and big lungs, so sometimes I worry that I'll blow them out a little bit. But I also have to admit this is not my normal Saturday uniform, but it is my speaking in front of people uniform. I find some fun shoes and a little whimsy gives me some confidence. So thank you for having me here. I am Stephanie Braun, and I'm going to be talking today about community. It's funny because when I was thinking about this,
Hang on just a second. We gotta record this.
thank you. My mom will be glad to hear. All right.
You are ready to go.
Great. Thank you. Here. No, I'm good.
Stephanie,
Yes.
could you explain who your mom is and how?
Yes. I have it
Oh, okay.
in my notes, but thank you. Yes. All right, so who am I? I am Stephanie Marie Braun, and the website mentioned, I'm just going to give a little plug here, is stephaniembraun.com. I moved here from California, Santa Barbara, California, almost a year and a half ago. I am the middle child of 7, and so that is a huge part of who I am. I am community driven. Like I said, middle child of 7. When I was 11 years old, I joined the choir in the church that I grew up in, St. Athanasius Orthodox Church in Santa Barbara. And that church has a connection to this church, which I will get to shortly. Before I moved here, I worked at a small gym. I taught women's strength training. And my favorite part about it was that this community built up within these women. Suddenly, we were all in each other's lives. We knew what was going on. We knew we had a space there. Before I moved, I also worked at the family business. I worked there for about 9 years, and we actually called that the other church office because everybody who worked there was involved with St. Athanasius in some way, connected in some way, and throughout our time there, or my time there, we would do various things for the church. Sometimes we did accounting, sometimes we did marketing. It was all very community-based. I had deep roots in my community in Santa Barbara. So, I did what any normal, community-driven person would do, and I packed up my little red bug, and I moved across the country. Completely uprooted myself. I want to take a moment here to admit that I had some nerves. I was expecting some sort of culture shock here. I come from California casual, where the word dude is not only a gender neutral, but it's a universal pronoun. It's also acceptable as an interjection. For example, dude, I could totally wear yoga pants to work and it was fine. That doesn't fly out here. I was nervous, but I did expect it to be a relatively smooth transition because I was coming here. And here is where my connection to this parish comes in. My grandparents basically founded this place. I don't know how many people here are familiar with the EOC. I have found, the Evangelical Orthodox Church, I have found that the older I get, the less people are aware of it, but it is the history of this church. It is my literal family history. My grandfather, on my mom's side, is Father Gordon Walker, of blessed memory, and my grandmother is Korea Mary Sue, of blessed memory. On my dad's side, my grandmother is Korea Mary Ellen Braun, of blessed memory, and my grandpa is Father John Braun. These people, my grandparents, were major in leading the EOC. My grandfathers were 2 of what I've heard of called the Santa Barbara 5, sometimes the Santa Barbara 7, depending on who you're talking to, but generally it was the 5. And I say it's my literal history because my parents would not have gotten married without the EOC. They just wouldn't have. My grandparents, like I said, were leaders. Like, I have deep roots here. But if I'm completely honest, transition was not as smooth as I wanted it to be. I felt, the way I phrased it was that I felt like my puzzle piece just didn't quite fit. I had come from a place where the puzzle had been built around me, and I took my piece out and was expecting to just stick it in another Steph-shaped place. And so, in preparing for this talk, or this little chat, I guess, I went back and I found some emails that my grandpa and I had exchanged a little over a year ago. And he was, in these emails, just encouraging me. He had sent me an email when he was up in the middle of the night. He likes to hassle people. And so he just said, I hope you're doing well. Your poor old grandpa's just pining away after you. And so that got us into this conversation about how I was doing out here. And he began to encourage me. And a lot of that was encouraging me in my career and telling me that, yeah, you're a fine writer, but really what you should be doing with your life is some sort of public speaking. He kind of says it like that too. But at the end of one of his emails, after I had said, I don't know that I fit, he said to me, hang on, keep up your work, and God bless you, sweetheart. So, I hung on, I kept up my work, and God blessed me. Slowly I began to learn and relearn people's names. I began to kind of see who was connected to whom, which adults belonged to which children. And what I found was then I took a final step, and I stepped into the life of the community, and I joined the choir. And suddenly I realized that what I had done is I had shifted my puzzle piece so that I could latch on to a connection that was already there. And what I noticed was, as is often the case, when we shift a little bit, to be clear here, I am not saying to change. Don't change who you are, but shift, maybe soften a little bit. I found that the puzzle shifted, and suddenly there was a space for me. And I could see the people who had always had a connection out for me, and I could see the people who had learned who I am and had seen me, and they shifted too. But during this process, I had a lot of time to reflect on this idea of community, and what does it mean, and what does a church community look like? And again, while preparing for this, I thought, I can turn to probably what I think of as the most popular Bible verse about community, which is Matthew 18:20, wherever two or three are gathered in my name. I'm not going to talk about that. What I am going to tell you is you can Google Bible verses community, and lists and lists and lists and lists come up. And that is what I want to talk about. Because the thing is, the fact that there are so many of these verses about how important community is points to something crucial. And that is that God is a relational God. God is relationship. He is community. And I want to show you how important this is in my notes. It takes up a lot of space in my notes. I don't know if you can see it, but it's like double or triple the size of my regular writing. I got real fired up about that. And here, I need to give a little disclaimer here, because I'm not a theologian, and I am not claiming to be a theologian, and if I'm 100% honest, talking about the Trinity makes my head hurt. Literally makes my head hurt. So, I just wanted to throw that out there. I do, however, pay attention. I am a writer, and that's what writers do. We pay attention to the world, we listen, we take things in, and then we try to somehow get it out. So I listen. I listen to the sermons, to the homilies. I listen to the prayers that are prayed, and I'm going to give you a little tip here, a little plug for the choir. Those hymns that we sing one after the other, right after the call to worship, those are incredible dogmatic hymns. Because if you look at the history of the church, we didn't always have a liturgy book. People people couldn't read. And so the way that the leaders got around that or wanted to share and teach the people was they put it into the music. So I know it can be hard because when I'm not in the choir, it's really easy for my brain to kind of like drift off during, because it's just song after song after song, right? Try to pay attention to those because, whoa, I've learned a lot from those. So I have a little bit of an edge up there on that. But in paying attention, that is how I learned that God is relationship. I want to take a little step to the side here and confess that in our normal liturgy, or our normal Sunday liturgy, which I put in quotes because, again, if you pay attention, you realize that normal actually is less than half the year because typically we're celebrating something. There are two parts of liturgy, two things said that no matter where I am in my faith, no matter where I am in my life, they like. It's like drinking, it's like my soul drinks ice cold water, right? No matter where I am. The first is, remember me, O Lord, in your kingdom. Because that is what I'm banking on. Oh, banking on grace. And I could talk for an hour on that, but I'm not going to. Because the second is, during the anaphora, we are always mentioning the Trinity together. Together. We're praying to Christ. We say, with the Father and the Spirit. Prayers to the Father, with your Son, with the Spirit. The Trinity is always together. Because God is relationship. In Orthodoxy, we believe that the Son is eternally begotten from the Father. That the Spirit eternally proceeds from the Father. And that eternal is crucial. Because it wasn't a one-time thing. It's always, always. The Trinity cannot be separated out. God is relationship. He is community. So now, before I become an accidental heretic by talking too much about the Trinity, I'm going to accept the mystery. And I'm going to move on a little bit to what this has to do with us. So, take out my little trusty Bible here. And I want to read a couple verses in Genesis. This is Genesis 1:26 through 27. Then God said, let us make man in our image, in our likeness, and let them rule over the fish of the sea and the birds of the air, over the livestock, over all the earth, and over all the creatures that move along the ground. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him. Male and female he created them. We are made in the image and the likeness of God. Which, first of all, is like, when I think about that, I get really fired up about it. It's so exciting. Again, another hour-long thing I'm not going to go down. I'm not going down that path. But we are made to be in relationship. We are made to be in a relationship with him, and that's the incarnation, Christ taking on our humanity, the crucifixion, his descent into hell, and I love this, breaking the bonds of hell. There's a hymn, there's a prayer that says he tore down the wall of enmity, right? There was a wall between us that happened at the fall, where we couldn't be in relationship with God. Christ took that on, he obliterated that wall. I think of it as like a sonic boom moment. I kind of imagine like Christ dropping down into Hades and this like, I'm so excited. So yes, so we are made to be in a relationship with him. And we are made to be in a relationship with each other. Because we are all created in the image and likeness of God. We are all created to be like him. And we only know ourselves in relation to the other. I can truck along just fine, never knowing how prideful I am, until I bump up against someone and I realize that I'm judging them, I think I'm better than them, I'm full of pride. I would never know my own selfishness, my own impatience, my own all of those things, without other people there to kind of inspire those feelings in me. And And also, as one of 7 kids, I have been inspired a lot. I also inspire very well. I know exactly which buttons to push. Likewise, I will never know my capacity for love or forgiveness, for service or courage or honesty without other people to cultivate those within me. We are made in the image of God. We are made to be in community with each other. So, here we are, a community within a community, right? We're a community of women within the larger community of St. Ignatius, within the larger community of the Orthodox churches in Nashville, which, it's a Russian nesting doll situation, right? So where does that leave us? What do Christian communities of women look like? Now, I don't know about you, but when I think about a biblical community of women, I think about the Theotokos and the Myrbearers. And maybe I'm doing them a disservice by thinking about them like that, but I think if I talk about the women that my mom spends time with, I don't say the women my mom spends time with, I say my mom and her friends, which is why when I think about the myrrh-bearing women, I always think the Theotokos and the myrrh-bearers. Little distinction. Again, I could be an accidental heretic for that, and I do apologize. But the myrrh-bearers, they followed Christ to his passion. Side note here, no shade to the apostles. It was a terrifying moment. And when I try to think about that, I can't even fathom how horrified and frightened they must have been. Because they were friends with Christ. They were known for, Peter, right? Like being told, hey, didn't you spend time with him too? When he denied Christ 3 times. So they kind of hid away and scattered. But the women followed Christ. In John 19, verse 25, it says very clearly, near the cross of Jesus stood his mother's sister, Mary the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene. Right? And they were there. They followed him, even though they had just as much to lose as anyone else in following him to his passion. Christian communities of women courageously follow Christ. They are faithful. We all know the story, right? They go to the tomb. They say, who will roll away the stone? It's Mark 16, verses 1 through 3, if you want to check that out. They do the thing set before them. They take on the service set before them, even though they don't know how it's going to happen. They just do it. And they are rewarded immensely for that, right? Christian communities of women are faithful. And they are truth tellers, even when not believed. Luke 24, let's see if I can find my notes here. Luke 24, 9 through 11. When they came back from the tomb, they told all these things to the 11 and to all the others. It was Mary Magdalene, Joanna, Mary the mother of James, and the others with them who told this to the apostles. But they did not believe the women because their words seemed to them like nonsense. We know the rest of the story, right? Peter and John ran to the tomb and saw that it was true. But nonsense. They were truth tellers, even when not believed. Christian communities of women are courageous, faithful truth tellers. So may we, through their prayers, live our lives as they, courageous, faithful truth tellers.